a little bit off late. It's been range bound with a negative bias, and all focus once again has actually moved to the way the global markets have been shaping up. And we've somewhat been falling prey to that. Having said that, we are down for another week. In the week gone by, this one, remember, is going to be a truncated one, with tomorrow being a trading off. And we did manage to snap that 2-week off gains that we had been steady holding on to. The Nifty Bank, Nikunj, I guess that's where all the focus is, right? Because that starkly underperformed, lots of earnings, and today we'll be reacting to ICICI Bank and Kotak as well.
So Aisha, unlike what everybody thought, that market in the short, banks will make a comeback largely because of endorsement when it comes to solidification of quarterly numbers. I think the bank Nifty is in a state of limbo. And whether it is rate sensitives or high beta names, typically financials, they tend to underperform when the lay of the global market is not that strong. So I just want to go back to that same point once again, that you look at the lay of the global market, and which is that crude, bond yields at 5%, the handover from US markets on Friday to this Monday is not that encouraging. So the big cross continues to be the global market, and you're going through that phase where you got to be asking yourself that is it really worth it? I mean, what is cheap in this market? Select banks and some pharma names. Rest of the market is not exactly very cheap. PSU stocks are expensive, defense stocks are expensive, FMCG stocks are expensive, IT is not delivering. So the options to just buy and put fresh money to work in this market is limited. Global cues are not that strong and supportive. Reliance, HDFC Bank, some of the heavyweights are just not, jiving very well. So I think you're going through that phase of the market where you may want to just ask yourself why and how much before you are committing to fresh capital. It is not a market where you can really identify a lot of momentum also in individual names. So maybe if you're a trader, take a back seat. Maybe you're an investor. Before you deploy fresh capital, ask yourself why. Wait for that bargain, because the global setup is such that sooner than later, I think you are going to be getting, better entry points. That's my point.
There's no rush looking at the global screen also, and also that you've got earnings to digest. Q2 is a critical one.
Yeah, so don't be in a hurry to sell just because what's happening in this rate.
And don't be in a hurry to buy either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So sometimes no action is a good action. Yeah. So I think we are in that phase of the market where you got to say yourself, okay, what do I do then in the month of November?
Sit on the sidelines. Enjoy cricket.
Enjoy cricket. The
And the
there is
festivals.
Diwali. Watch ET now.
Exactly.
Enjoy our programming. So there are a lot of things to do. But it's not a market where I think the experience of you may not be rewarded proportionally to the kind of effort you're putting in, because that is the market setup you are in.
Okay, having said that, yes, banks will steal the show. It was a busy weekend as well because you had heavyweights come out with their quarterly numbers. So quick review of Kotak Bank's numbers as well as ICICI Bank, and Kotak was largely in line with what the street was penciling in. Remember, we were going in with expectations that this time around their margins would decline, and that's exactly what happened. You had the CASA ratio as well on a sequential basis that declined, and their overall asset quality did see a little bit of deterioration on a sequential basis. Jefferies has downgraded it to hold from buy. CLSA's got an outperform rating. They've slashed the target price though. And then you also have ICICI Bank, which came out with a strong set of numbers. NII profits rose. The loan growth was pretty strong though, and provisions as well came in lower. And then, of course, there was the big news to digest with respect to Kotak Bank, with now the former CEO of Barclays, Ashok Vaswani, now taking the hot seat as the MD and CEO.
I think that is what the street is going to react to first today, right?
News.
And I don't expect the market reaction in the short term is going to be a very, kind one.
Yeah.
Okay, let's break it up. From last 1 year, there was speculation that there were 2 internal candidates and there was 1 external candidate. The choice of an external candidate, so the bank must have had given 3 names to RBI. RBI ultimately gave the final verdict or the final decision. The question you would ask yourself is that why there is no internal candidate and why an external candidate. So Kotak Mahindra Bank, in a sense, is a bank which is built on trust, great risk management, supreme customer satisfaction, and great adoption of technology. Can Mr. Vaswani really take it forward? And was there no one internally which could have really taken the baton from Mr. Kotak? So in the near term, we've seen that even a bank like HDFC Bank has suffered. Markets know that the CEO at the top matters. A case in point here is the Chanda Kochhar era versus the Chanda Kochhar era for ICICI Bank versus the versus Mr. Bakshi's era. So the CEO and the managing director of a bank, irrespective of what the lending practices are, does matter. So now markets would be curious, some would say anxious, to understand that how the migration would move. Uday Kotak has built a franchise, an unforgettable franchise from an unknown franchise to an unforgettable franchise. Can Mr. Vaswani do the justice to him? And that will be answered in due course of time. And that, in a sense, will inject this extra element of uncertainty. Both in terms of the FI positioning and also in terms of market positioning, the stock is not really in any kind of a momentum groove. So while markets and institutional investors will take their time to digest, in the near term, I think Kotak Mahindra Bank, the underperformance, I think will just become more and more stark and more real. However, I don't expect a very sharpish kind of a reaction simply because the stock has become cheap. It is trading at valuations which are pre-LNFS. And then, so I think the sheer valuation and the sheer underperformance in Kotak Mahindra Bank, I think in a sense, will restrict the downside. But everyone thought that it's going to be an internal candidate, and that internal candidate will just mark continuity, and that whole concern of succession planning would be over. Now markets would say, okay, we're not saying no, but we need to examine the new external candidate. And then the question is that why was the choice of an internal candidate really rejected? These are questions which are genuine questions. Time will answer. Can Mr. Vaswani make Kotak global? That's the experience he comes with. Because ultimately, Mr. Kotak has chosen somebody who understands his DNA, who understands his lending culture. But markets will take some time before that convince. So in the interim, the stock which is underperforming will continue to underperform. And when you see delivery coming out in next 2, 3, 4 quarters, that's the time I guess you would actually see the market revisiting this whole handover thesis.
Yeah, absolutely. Although Uday Kotak, of course, is extremely enthused by Ashok Vaswani's appointment, saying that, he's a global banking leader with a proven track record of building and growing businesses at international scale and has successfully steered organizations to greater heights, and that he's confident that Ashok Vaswani is going to accelerate change and drive growth at Kotak as well. In fact, Deepak Gupta also, stating that they welcome Ashok Vaswani into the family. He brings with him values and experience that align with Kotak's vision to transform into a tech-enabled, customer-centric financial institution for the future. So this, of course, is going to be one of the key stocks to look out for. But ICICI Bank, almost batting like Virat Kohli.
Yeah, but from a market standpoint, whatever ICICI Bank is actually doing is something which you're aware of. Virat Kohli is expected to take care of Indian cricket team, whether it is collapse or whether it is a run chase, and that is what I think ICICI
Bank today. Yeah.
So it is something which was expected. The NIMs in a sense was slightly down, but I think there is a bit of a cyclicality there. The credit growth on that kind of a large base is in late teens. So fantastic set of numbers, but the stock has been a ranked outperformer. These stocks, the numbers will only ensure that the continuity and the big picture argument for banks is actually intact. Now, could there be a case where money moves out of HDFC Bank? Money moves out of Kotak Bank. It has already moved out of HDFC Bank. It will migrate really back into ICICI Bank, which I think is already at play, and I think it may actually happen more. My only thing is that in the near term, if money moves out of Kotak Mahindra Bank, which it will, where will it go? Will it go back to HDFC Bank, which again has the same issues in terms of 2 or 3 quarters more of subdued earnings? Could it come back to ICICI Bank? Or could it go back to something like IndusInd Bank and Axis Bank, because they have a very different proposition in terms of what they have to offer? By the way, I think, Kunal, IndusInd Bank is at a 52-week high?
Yes, it is.
There you go. I mean, here we are talking about banks being in a limbo, but I think IndusInd Bank has done rather well for itself. So you will actually see rotation.
Some of the smaller ones also.
Yes.
We'll talk about that.
You will see rotation.
Yeah.
I think with these numbers and with the Kotak news, I think you will see some rotation.
Okay. In case you're wondering, this is a truncated week. We've kick-started the festive season.